Welcome to our, perfect, thank you. Um, Welcome to our second webinar of our regular series from Automate the Planet. Today we'll talk about responsive design automated testing. We'll look into a few tools and frameworks. So first, who am I? Probably most of you know me. My name is Anton Angelov. I'm co-founder and CTO of Automate the Planet. For more than 7 years, I'm writing each week blog posts on Automate the Planet. Also, we developed this open source framework called Bellatrix. And now my full-time job is basically to consult companies and to help them, integrate automated testing toolings and set up processes. And also we lead a lot of trainings. So today we'll talk about a few things. First, why you need to test the responsiveness, not only about websites, but also desktop applications and mobile applications. We'll look into a few ways how you can do that. And we'll talk about these two types of tests called layout tests and style tests. And of course, big part of the demonstration will be about looking into code and how you can basically do it yourself if you want. So first, why you need to test the responsiveness of your website. This is like an example. When you have different resolutions, especially under different mobile web browsers, the website is like rearranging all of the elements. And of course, this is like a completely different branch of the JavaScript and HTML, etc. All of these code behinds. So you need to make sure you need to separately have different test cases to verify it. Even before, while I was working as QA architect in Telerik in Progress, we had to do this almost 100% verification of the web designs, whether they pass pixel perfect. So we used back then again automated tests to do that. Of course, you can do it manually, and this is the first step. But with time, you need to have a regression suite to test that. And we'll look into a couple of ways how you can achieve that. The first framework that I knew that it's like be able to do this kind of a verifications with code was the so-called GLEN Framework. If you are familiar with Gherkin and Specflow and this kind of a BDD automated testing, GLEN offers its own like a syntax. It's not Gherkin, but basically you define your elements here, how you locate them with CSS, Expat, and other like different locator technologies that you have in Selenium WebDriver. And then you have this syntax where you can basically say, please verify that this particular element is below the other one and so forth. We can check their website. It's glenframework.com. Here it is. You can download the tool. It's basically a few DLLs. They have their own runner, I think. I opened the documentation in order to show you because this is really helpful to understand what layout testing is. Basically, we check, for example, whether a particular button is on top of this text field, whether it's above this button, and we can measure whether this distance here is exactly 5 pixels or not. We can do that for every direction, basically. And it's simple math, right? I think from what I read, behind the scenes, they use, again, Selenium WebDriver. It's basically, this is some kind of a wrapper they're engine with this kind of language. So it's quite useful. And I get the idea from creating the Bellatrix layout library from here, but I decided that it's much better to be entirely coded than use this kind of a weird syntax. Of course, this has some pros, and this is that from what I heard, many, directly the designers or front-end developers are able to, write these tests even if they don't know how to use C# or Java. So in some cases, this type of tests might be useful. So this is one way how you can test responsive designs. Keep in mind that this is like, you can apply this only for websites. Like they have this syntax here, I'm not sure where, but basically you can change and resize the browser so that you fit into the different mobile resolutions, which is good. However, you cannot apply this kind of testing for example, Android or iOS applications or for desktop. And later on during the presentation, I will propose how we can do that through C#. And I will explain some part of the code so that you can get the idea. So, as I said, first way how you can write automated tests is to use GLEN. Another type of more about maybe manual testing at first is that you can use this Chrome device toolbar. And here, basically, it's better to show it directly. This is our demo application. And if I press F12 or directly from here, I open the developer tools, you will see that you have this icon here called toggle device toolbar. So I can click on it, and here I can change basically the resolution for particular, resolutions for mobile. And I can test my layout here and see what will happen. I can do that manually, but also we can basically integrate this in WebDriver. And in order to trigger this and start this mobile emulation, you can use this method called enable mobile emulation. And basically you need here to specify the name of the emulated device. And then the resolution of your browser will be, not only the browser, basically this will change the size of the browser, but also will pass the right agent in the HTTP requests, because mostly, the way the CSS and JavaScript and HTML is working is that we use this agent meta tag to determine basically the device. Another way that you can use, pretty often when I need to write complex queries, and especially for complex websites, I really love to use Expat instead of using like a few chain locators, for example, like finding a particular table and then trying to find another element inside it. This is here on the slide. You can find like simple scenarios for Expat. The presentation is not about Expat, but rather I want to show you a little bit more advanced Expat called Expat Access. And basically the thing that this syntax allows us is to, find, to traverse the DOM. We can find, when we locate a particular element, we can get its siblings, we can get its parent, we can get its childs. And if you recall from what layout testing is, basically we can use that to, basically you can use these locators. If the element is there, then maybe you can check the layout and the position of the elements. Let me show you what I mean. It's not exactly layout testing, but sometimes it's useful to know that. We have a few, for example, we use Bellatrix to test, you know, to create a automated test for a few clients. And one of them has this really complex system where we have a lot of forms, but these forms, like, for example, the text fields, etc., the IDs and the locators are always dynamically generated, like they're not unique. The unique thing on the page is basically when are these labels here. And if we inspect through DevTools, you know, the HTML, you will see that basically this label and this input are like symlinks. And this means that if we find first the label, then we can use this Expat Access to locate the input itself. And we can create this kind of an extension method for locating text boxes or buttons based on their label. And now I will show you how we can do that. And I want to do that using this inner text. And even we can even further make it even harder, not like comparing not by you know, equally here the inner text, but basically write an XPath for contains, you know, when only for part of this text here. So in order to write such XPaths, first we need to start with 2 slashes, then probably with the tag name, in this case label. Then in these square brackets, we need to mention, usually when we want to mention attribute, we use at, but right now I want to get the text. And as we said, we want to check only part of it. So I will use the method contains. Expat give you this possibility to write even methods inside these locators. So I will use contains. And then in order to get the text of the label, we use the method text, and separated by comma here, I can mention basically the text that I want to find, in this case, email. And then to use the Expat Access, I need to write single slash, actually, yeah, a slash. And then if we return to the presentation and see the syntax, we can use this following sibling because our text input was below the label. Yeah, give me a second to find again the example. Where it is? Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. And so I will need to write following slash sibling, and then we have 2 times 2 dots, and then we need to write input or button or whatever. In our case, this will be input. And as you can see, we were selecting this text field here, the email. And in next part, we start the race with 1. And this is our unique, you know, locator. Also, as I said, we can find even the parent. If I write parent diff, I will get the parent diff here. So we can use such kind of locators for, again, checking the layout and searching for elements through the layout of the HTML. If we return to the presentation, so what is the layout testing? As we said, basically this is automated tests or manual tests, because many times even for many people usually need to check this you know, manually, and that's completely fine. We usually use services like Sauce Labs or Browser Stack, all others, where you can pick you know, you can pick mobile device or whatever that you want to check the proper resolution, and they will set up this emulator or a real device for you. However, I want to do that through code and to have this kind of a syntax. with all of these comprehensive rules. And now I will directly show you a few examples in Bellatrix and what we have here, because we, by the way, Bellatrix is our, open source framework in C# that basically you can test web, mobile, Android, iOS, desktop API. And as part of it, we created this layout testing library or module part of the framework, where you can test basically the, as I said, the responsiveness of the websites, or not only, even of the Android applications, iOS and desktop. And the API is identical, and in a minute I will explain how this works. Basically, for web, we're just resizing the browser based on the the size that you want to test. And also we behind the scenes put this user agent there, depending on whether you want to emulate mobile or not. And as you can see here, we have these predefined resolutions, and the framework behind the scenes will resize the browser in the proper way. Also, this is compatible with all of the cloud providers, where basically you can say the same thing, but they will set up the proper emulator, virtual machine, browser, resolution, etc. for you. But this is maybe a cheap way to do it. The thing that we do is that, as I said, in layout testing, basically we check whether, for example, this image here is below this one, whether, for example, when you have a full screen, whether all of these buttons are aligned horizontally, or whether these ones here are aligned vertically, and so on. And the way we do that is that here we use extension methods for this particular library. As you can see here, first we locate the elements using particular locator. By attribute expat, no matter, it's similar to WebDriver. Behind the scenes, we use WebDriver, Appium, WinAppDriver, whatever. It's again this WebDriver W3C protocol. And then if we open this assert above, as you can see, it's basically we're saying, please check that this sort dropdown is above of this Proton rocket anchor. And there are a few variations of all of these methods where we can provide the exact pixels, or whether it's more than a few pixels or less than equal. We can mention approximation with percents and so on, or between even. And the way this works is that, by the way, this is called Getting Started Guide, or a starter kit, whatever. You can download. What is the idea? And the idea here, this is really something useful that I want to promote to you, not for our solution, but you can try to do a similar thing for your own library, no matter the language. The whole idea is that we have this rich documentation. We have the documentation here, but this is not enough. Many people are just sometimes lazy, and this is text, you know. The thing that we try here to do is that in this starter kit, basically, this is a project with a lot of examples, folder by folder. Like you have 37 folders for each of the features of the, for example, the web part of the framework. And you start checking the examples here from folder 2, for example. And this particular file here, it contains a lot of tests, but not only the tests, but also the explanations how, for example, this attribute here works and how the engine behind the scenes works. You can start the test, you can debug it, it's connected directly to the code. And when you are finished with this particular section, which is, the basics, then we have files with exercises. And the whole idea is that you can do something similar for your own framework. Because most of you that are more senior and have to maintain, frameworks or private company tooling, when a new team member joins, I bet that, even if you have documentation, you have to sit next to these people and explain them in detail how to write tests, etc. But when you have such a starter kit or a guide, it's much more easy for people to get started and to, just read, play with it, try to do exercises, and then ask you. This will save you a lot of time. So we try to do something similar for all of the modules. We have such starter kits for web, Android, iOS, desktop, API, for everything. And as part of the examples that I will show you now, basically we'll look in these two folders, layout and style testing. And basically here I created a really large example of this layout testing for the homepage of our demo app here. It's basically a shopping cart that we can, as I said, resize it and change the different resolutions. And how I made this like available for all technologies? Well, if we open this, you'll see that this is part of the core folder or this project called Bellatrix Layout Assertions. But if we check the references here, you will notice that there isn't like a reference directly to WebDriver or whatever. Basically, I wrote this library part of Bellatrix in an abstract way, so it doesn't matter whether it's applicable for web, for mobile, and for desktop. And the way we do that is that I implemented all of these assertion methods. Here we use this C# feature called extension methods. Basically, we put everything into a static class in static methods, and then using this keyword this in front of this basically interface, we achieve this syntax where, as you saw here, basically this is not part of the methods provided by the element itself, but basically these are extension methods. This is a special feature of C#. And it was built later on in the new versions of C# where in order to be able to extend clause types such as strings or collections and add new methods to them. For example, system link was built in a similar way. So these are extension methods. And what is this iLayout element? This iLayout element have a few, only three parts, three properties or getters. This is a property, a getter property in C#, but in Java, this is just a regular method that returns the location of the element, its size, and its name. This location is just x, y, and the size. This is just height and width, and both of these are contained for the native elements in WebDriver protocol. So you can get them from there, which means that we have separate projects for mobile, desktop, and web. If we navigate to the implementation, for example, of the core element of our framework, the core component, as you will see here, this is the our web module. Here I implemented this iWeb layout element, and basically inside it, if we see location, I'm not sure where it was, but somewhere here, we're basically implementing the interface, and we're just returning the wrapped element, or this is the native WebDriver element, and we're returning the location and the size. This means that whatever like component I have, for example, we have implementation for all of the HTML5 controls. Here we use the adapter design pattern. You can find an article about this design pattern on Automate the Planet. But basically, for these HTML5 controls, some of them you cannot like automate them directly with WebDriver. For example, if you try to type the color inside the color element, you won't be able to do that because the color is set into the value attribute of the HTML5 element. This is why here we use basically JavaScript to set the value inside it. And as I said, no matter all of these components here, no matter of the type, they are basically deriving from this core element, which means that they implement this layout element. This is how, no matter which type of control I return, I can apply my layout assertion library. And as I said, we do something similar for example, let's check the mobile. Here under mobile, I have again these adapters for the different components, different controls. For example, Android, and I have this Android element. And if I open this generic implementation of the class right here, I think, let's see which one was. As you can see, this element TDriver element, which is double generic, it implements this again iLayout element interface, and basically we're again returning the native element. In the case of Android, this will be Android driver Android element, and in case of iOS, this will be let's see, iOS. This will be iOS element. And for all of them, when I return them, I use this native element to return again the location and the size. And this means that I can apply my layout assertions. The same for desktop. There, we don't use Appium, we use WinAppDriver, which is like an extension on top of Appium. And let's return to the layout asserts. The thing that I do here is that if we see these assertion methods, for example, assert above of greater than, basically I'm providing through the extension, this is the first element and the second is just a parameter, then I provide the expected double. These are the pixels, you know. And the whole calculation here is in this calculate above of distance, where I provide these two basically iLayout elements. And inside it, as you can see, we have a bunch of them where we calculate basically the right of distance, left of distance. And as you can see, this is just a simple calculations using this location and size, just to measure whether this particular element in the right direction. No need to, you know, explaining what this, it's a simple math. There is another interesting thing here, that when we get the actual distance, inside it we use this assert. We made this in an abstract way where basically we have a common assertion class. Again, if I open, you will see that basically this is a sealed class, that it's a static, it's a simulation for, it's our own assertion. The whole idea here is that the framework can be used with MS Test and with NUnit. And the way we achieve that is that this is our own assert static class, where, as you can see here from this service collection, through this service locator design pattern, we are resolving the current registered implementation of the iAssert. we have two different implementations for this interface. We have one for MS Test and one for NUnit. Here it is. We have MS Test Assert, which implements this iAssert, and basically here inside it we just call the Microsoft Visual Studio Test Tools unit testing assert, and we do a similar thing for NUnit. But the core thing here is that inside of our layout assertion, we use this our own static class that basically resolves the current implementation, and we have these wrapper methods here to simplify the usage. And basically here we just check whether this distance here, as you can see here, we are making this type of checks, whether the actual difference is greater than the expected. If not, we basically throw these messages here, which I think are more explanatory than just throwing that the test failed. And there is one more thing in this library, and the thing is that here we have events, as you can see, static events, event handlers, that basically these are our hooks where we can execute particular actions and extend the framework. And the thing that we do here is that, for example, we use this to build our BDD logging plugin. What is the BDD? Let me just show you an example of it. Basically, when it's enabled and when you start executing your tests, the framework will tell you, I will cover the control with this particular locator, or I will check the control inner text, this particular text, etc. And and we have a similar extension for this layout library. And the way it works is that, as you can see here, we have different implementations for all the different like directions. We implement that through static partial classes. Basically, when all of these files here will be merged when you compile to a single file. This is something, again, C# specific. I don't think that there is a similar feature in Java. But anyway, it's like you can do it in different files too. I think this is a little bit better implementation, but it will still work. So we have these event handlers here. I created this special class. As you can see, we have a lot of them. I created this abstract class called assertion extension event handlers. And we have this subscribe to all and unsubscribe for all. And we provided this protected virtual methods in order to directly, just override the method and add what you want to do. And here, as you can see, I derived from this base sealed class. And basically, as you can see, I overrided and I added this logger information. And this will be the message that it will be printed using my BDD logging. Basically, the time when you make a layout assertion, the event handler that it's here, that we already subscribed to it, will be triggered and will walk to the console or to a file. And you can create the cool thing about this implementation with the event handlers here is that you can have more than one. For example, we have one for the BDD logging, which is printed on the console or basically in your Jenkins or Azure DevOps output. But also we have this new cool tool. It's like a chatbot that integrates with all major platforms such as Teams, Skype, Messenger, Slack, etc. And there, when some of your tests failed, it can send you a message and send you a similar BDD logging format with a screenshot and a video, etc. And this works for group chats. And in order this to work, we have another such plugin, but as you can see, I'm not editing at all the library itself. I'm just extending this base class, and this will subscribe automatically to this event handlers, which is really great because we are following one of the solid principles that our classes are open for extension but closed for modification. And in many places where we wanted to achieve such a, extendability in the framework, we build it in a quite similar way and fashion. Also, we have, again, similar plugin for, we have this cool feature called, again, this is open source. If you're curious, you can get the source code, implement it yourself for Java or whatever. We're not selling anything. Here, as part of the product integrations, we have this cool feature called dynamic test cases. This is a feature where basically when you execute your test and if it passes, it will generate like an automated test case in Azure or in Qtest. Right now we have these two integrations for test cases. And you have here for the different steps of the test case, like similar to the BDD logging, like steps. And for example, if you make an assertion like in the layout, then the expected value will be present here, which is really great. And as I said, we're not changing one single line of code inside the layout checks, but we just create additional class with all these overrides, and basically here, instead of the logger or this bug reporting, we call this dynamic test cases service. And here, for example, we add this at a third step, which is basically the, as I said, the expected result in Azure DevOps or in Qtest. And I think this is about the layout testing. As I said, there are a lot of different scenarios where you can use it. For example, it's not only about measuring the distance between elements, above, below, near, top, etc. Also, we can use this static class layout assert, where you can check whether all of the elements are aligned horizontally or vertically together. And as you can see here, we can provide more than one, more than two. As you can see here, this is implemented using another like C# feature called a special type of parameters to the methods called params. And this means that here, through comma, you can list as many parameters as you want, as long as they are from this particular data type called iLayout interface. And here we have, as you can see, a more complex calculations to check whether they are aligned horizontally or vertically. And lastly, we can check also whether one element is inside of another, and we can assert the height and the width of the elements. And this is a similar BDD logging that I already mentioned that this extension is doing. And lastly, I wanted to mention another type of similar tests. I call them style tests. You have something similar, in GLEN. Basically, the layout test, the thing that they give you is that you can assert the font size of particular element. You don't have such asserts in WebDriver because it was never intended to be used so much as a testing tool. This is why you don't have asserts, etc. However, we included this part this kind of a library to our Bellatrix framework. Here you can assert the font size of a particular element, the font height, the font family, like here, the color, the background, the border. For a project right now that we work for clients, I asked them from them to give me their, they have this a third-party company developed from them like a styled guideline for the whole application, and we created this like checks for all of the pages, so all of the major pages. We assert that we're following this style guide, and we're checking the fonts, the font size, the font family, etc. Because quite often I see problems in certain sites that they have problems like on the different pages, and this is like quite useful if you can do it automated, right? And by the way, if you're curious how to implement this assert font size and stuff, I wrote an article. It's we use here a complex design pattern called composite design pattern. I will send you the article in the resources. It's part of the design pattern series here on Automate the Planet, composite design pattern, Automate the Planet, source code and the whole implementation. And by the way, this is like part of the chapters of my new book about design patterns for high quality automated tests. And I just released a few of the chapters for free on my website, so you can find it here and check it. It's quite interesting. And it's built on top of the adapter design pattern. Also, as part of our trainings here, in part 3, the masterclass, if you're like familiar with all of the basics and more advanced stuff in C#, we are learning for 30 hours or more how to build such frameworks in more detail and explaining all of the patterns. And also one more thing that can be interesting for you. I started to create this series of called Custom Test Automation Frameworks. And almost each week I'm releasing a new article. You can find it here under Test Automation Framework topic. It's 3 articles about how to do similar libraries. I just wanted to do the webinar first because this is like leveraging a lot of more advanced patterns, etc. And I'm not sure when we'll get to that. This is why I just wanted to show you a few stuff before we are ready to do it ourselves. And what else? Before proceeding to the questions, one more thing. You can we created a new Facebook group called Automate the Planet Worldwide Community. There I'm sharing a lot of interesting articles that I find during my time reading on them. I already send them to our weekly newsletter. However, yeah, I'm sharing them to the group because not all the people are reading their emails. And also, if you have some questions or problems, etc., you can ask questions there, and it's not only me answering, but a lot of other colleagues and automation engineers. This is the idea. And as I said, you can download the Bellatrix framework for free. It's open source. And I think that this approach for layout testing and style testing can be applied for any type of, no matter what language you use. And even if you don't use a WebDriver or Appium or WinAppDriver, you can do it with other similar tools. And yeah. Now it's time for questions, if you have such, before the closing words. I think we have 10 or 15 minutes. You can write them in a Q&A, or you can type them in the chat as you wish. If you are shy, you can always contact me on LinkedIn or just join the group or just send me an email. That's completely fine. I'll be happy to answer if you have any questions. All right. Before there was a NuGet package. However, right now if we navigate again to the source code, you'll see that there are more than 120 projects inside it. Before it was distributed as a NuGet packages, but it wasn't just one. This is why we decided just to open source it, and basically when you download it, you will receive all of these projects in a zip file, and you'll be able to play with them. The way you start is just going here to templates, and depending on the technology you want, you can just use these empty projects here. They are already pre-configured and start writing tests, or you can play with the getting started guide, depending on what you want. But we decided that we're going to distribute it, like if there is a new release, we'll just upload a new zip file, and that will be. We're just distributing, if we open here the MS build, we're distributing just this, basically the drivers for the different browsers as NuGet packages. But yeah, in order to write the test, you need to download the whole thing. And later on, if you don't need all of the projects, you can delete them, of course. It depends how it's easy. Like, for example, for the browsers, it's quite easy because you just, and for this tooling here, it really depends on your setup. For enterprise clients or whatever, we offer also a private GitHub repository. Our offering is similar to the one of Red Hat, with advanced support and GitHub, etc. But like if you use the zip, it's completely fine to just merge it yourself. We usually release release notes also, so this is the way how you can do it. This is how it's now. And there is one in the Q&A. Okay, thank you for joining. Also, maybe next week, if you join the group or our email list, I will write about the next few free webinars. I will create the list, a few of them in advance so that you can save the dates. Also, maybe next week, we'll check the video recording and upload it, and I will send it to you and upload it, and you'll have access to the resources when I publish the article. And yeah, stay tuned for the next free webinar, and if you want, you can join our Facebook group to chat there. Thank you for joining. And oh, there is one more side question. Okay, last one. Actually, yes, Bellatrix, I have also a tattoo of it. I don't know whether you see it. This is part of the Orion constellation. It's this star here. It means, because back in the high school, I was, really keen on astronomy, and I went to lessons and all of this stuff. And I even had my own telescope. And the first constellation that I saw through the telescope was Orion. And Bellatrix usually means, even if you look our logo here, it means it comes from Bella, which is like beautiful, fine female warrior. And it's also related to Amazon warriors. And yeah, I really like the constellation, and this is why we picked this name. And even the whole font of the logo and everything was designed by my partner Martin. The whole idea is that you should look it from top, because it's in the stars, and yeah. And even I did a tattoo of it, so. Okay, thank you for joining. Take care and see you soon again. Bye.